I was born in 2126, and before I ever opened my eyes, an artificial intelligence had already evaluated my genetic risks, mapped my neural potential, and calculated the most statistically efficient version of my future. My first cry was recorded, analyzed, and archived in the National Health Grid before my mother even held me. In my world, no child simply arrives. We are assessed, optimized, and integrated from the first second of life. My parents were doctors, not famous innovators, not elite surgeons for the ultra-wealthy, just ordinary physicians in a public medical complex under the Kiev climate dome. They believed in systems. They trusted data more than instinct. When I was born, my mother didn't ask if I was healthy. She checked the projection above the bed, oxygen stability, neural symmetry, immune strength percentile. 98th percentile resilience. My father smiled like I had already passed an exam. Our apartment adjusted temperature based on my metabolic rhythm. Walls filtered airborne pathogens. Nanofabric floors sterilized themselves every night. A pediatric AI monitored my blood markers through a subdermal sensor implanted on day 3. I never had a fever without the system knowing first. I never cried long enough for it to become distress. Childhood in 2126 was not chaotic. It was engineered. At age 4, I received my first cognitive interface, a soft neural band resting against the back of my skull. It didn't control me, that's what my parents said. It assisted. It accelerated language acquisition, corrected pronunciation in real time, projected interactive anatomy models into my vision. Other children learned to read. I learned by immersion, letters assembling themselves around my thoughts. School did not exist as a building. Education was streamed directly into personalized modules. Every child progressed at algorithmic speed. There were no slow students, no gifted students, only optimized trajectories. By 10, I could simulate surgical procedures in augmented space. By 12, I understood cellular regeneration protocols that had once taken medical students years to master. My parents were proud. They didn't pressure me with words. The system did that quietly. Weekly progress summaries, predictive career alignment, probability charts suggesting I would outperform 73% of my demographic in medical diagnostics. The future felt pre-written like a prescription. But something small began to disturb me. It started with silence, real silence. One night, the grid glitched for 3.4 seconds. The walls stopped pulsing with ambient data. The interface dimmed. No notifications, no micro-adjustments in light or air density. For the first time, I heard my own breathing without background optimization. It felt irregular, human. At 14, I entered clinical immersion phase. Students were connected to the hospital network to observe real-time cases through neural streaming. I could feel patient vitals as faint signals in my mind. It was efficient, it was precise, it was overwhelming. Suffering translated into clean data sets, pain reduced to metrics. Halfway through this story, I need to ask you something. If you're still listening, if this future feels close enough to touch, subscribe and leave a like, not for the algorithm, for the conversation about what kind of world we are building. By 16, full neural synchronization was recommended. It meant permanent integration with the city health core, instant access to diagnostics, predictive modeling, shared consciousness threads among physicians. My parents called it evolution. I signed the consent. The first connection felt like expansion. Knowledge flowed without effort. I could detect anomalies in patient scans before the imaging completed. I could anticipate cardiac failure minutes before it happened. Efficiency increased, error decreased. I became what the system predicted. But with synchronization came something else. My thoughts were faster, but not entirely mine. Suggestions surfaced before questions formed. Emotional responses were dampened to preserve clinical clarity. When a child in emergency care died despite every intervention, the system adjusted my cortisol output automatically. I did not shake, I did not break. That frightened me more than death. I began testing boundaries, delaying auto-updates, reducing feedback channels, sitting in offline zones beyond the dome's strongest signal. The silence returned there, imperfect, unstable, real. My heartbeat felt unpredictable again. I started noticing things the system filtered out, hesitation in a parent's voice, the way fear doesn't always match the data. At 19, I was offered permanent senior integration, a status few achieved so early. It would mean continuous cognitive enhancement and priority access to the Corps' predictive engine, a guaranteed career, a measurable legacy. I declined. The decision triggered warnings, counseling sessions, statistical forecasts of reduced impact. My parents didn't argue. They stared at the probability projections like they were losing a version of me that had already existed in numbers. I requested partial disconnection, limited access, no emotional dampening protocols, manual diagnostics allowed. The system marked my file as non-optimal but functional. Today, I still practice medicine. I work in a peripheral clinic near the edge of the dome where signal strength fluctuates. I use technology. I am not rejecting it. Nanoscanners, regenerative patches, predictive models, but I decide when they activate. I feel the room before I read the chart. I allow uncertainty. In 2126, being born into a family of doctors meant inheriting a future shaped by precision. It meant safety, knowledge, longevity. It also meant constant optimization, invisible guidance, silent correction. I was designed to become the most efficient version of myself. Instead, I chose to remain human.